Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Man Cave. Had a pretty busy morning. You know, most people would say it's never good when you have raspberries, thrown your way. Well, 50% of them were good. I'll show you what I mean right here. I'm standing shoulder deep in tick-infested raspberries. Look at this. They're not very ripe yet. There's tons of them coming. You can probably see a bunch of them there. Those aren't even started to be ripe yet, but these are definitely ripe, so I'm picking them. Well, there you go. That's what my haul is. I'd say for sure 2 cups and maybe 3 for sure. It's probably 3 cups, I would say. It's not bad. There's quite a few in there. It's heavier than it looks. Well, my friends, here's the end product of picking raspberries. And it is very good. Oh, was it ever very good. Yeah. So that part was real good. The other raspberries that you're about to see, not so much. But anyway, Sue actually happened upon those raspberries. And just for the uneducated there, blackberries are different than raspberries. Blackberries don't ripen till mid-July. So these are not blackberries. They are definitely raspberries. And they just grow wild here. These are up in the woods. In fact, we were really close to the tower stand where I was picking those, up on top of the ridge. And Sue happened to find them either yesterday or the day before, and she made that pie out of them. And I said, we need to go pick more of those. So we did that this morning. And it has been raining on and off. It didn't rain while we were out there, but it had been raining, and everything, all the bushes and everything were soaked, and my pants just got completely soaked. I didn't find any ticks, but I was expecting to find ticks. Sue said she found 2 or 3. She could just walk outside and find ticks, though. I've never seen anybody get more ticks than she does. It's crazy. Well, the other kind of raspberries, the Excavator was kind of thumbing its nose at me and making the raspberry sound, the like that. Well, here you go. In my never-ending list of projects here on the farm, I think I need to put an oil cooler on this and possibly an oil filter. Now, I'm talking hydraulic oil, not the engine oil. Though it probably wouldn't hurt to have an engine oil filter on it if you could get one on it. But back in there, and I don't think you can see it very well, but back in there is the tank. And that looks like the return line coming up there. There's some space on this side over here, I think, where I could put a cooler. They're not very expensive. Like $130, or actually I think I found one for $110 that was even nicer. So around $110 for a cooler. Now you're going to spend another $100 or more on hoses, probably $200 on hoses. That's where the money runs into. And then you got to have space to get it in here. And I'll tell you, the other problem is the adapters. These Chinese minis, this and the skid steer both, they have unique fittings that our local hydraulic shops don't have. The last time I needed it, I had to actually make a fitting to adapt. Made it on my lathe over there, which I could do again probably, and probably will have to. But I also want to put some kind of a fan, and I think maybe this is where the fan's supposed to be, but there's no fan on this thing to cool everything. It just overheats really bad. And with this cab on it, you don't want to be sitting on something that's so hot. I'm also going to try to figure out a way to just take this window out. I just don't need it. I mean, like even in the winter, and plus I don't use it as much in the winter. I don't need it. I mean, I can just put a coat on, that's just not my thing. like my Bobcat, the first thing I did was take the door off of them because I don't like that door. It's just, I'm in and out too much, and the door's just cumbersome. And other people would say, well, what about for the heat? I don't care about the heat. I really don't. That doesn't bother me in the least. And there's a big hole there for a fan. The problem is you pretty much got to tear it apart to see what you're dealing with, because you can't really tell by just looking like this. So maybe I'll take my impact wrench and see if I can knock some of these panels off and see what it really looks like and give you a better view. It's not coming loose. Ah, there's another bolt right there behind this. Oh, there's two more bolts behind the panel. No wonder. You can't get to those. Well, that sucks, canal water. Ain't no point in taking that off because I'm not going to go that far. So I guess I'll put those back. Well, maybe I can get this one off while I've got... No, this is part of... That's all one panel. That's just paint. I'm trying to decide if I could do anything to get this off. I could get it off with a wrench, but you know what? It looks like it hinges this way, and it ain't going to hinge with this covering it. I'm about ready to take my plasma cutter and cut that off. That's goofy. What a shame. For now, I'm just going to put it back on. What a pain. Let me go to the back here and take this little panel off. I know it comes off. I've had it off. So this is the return hose, and I need to come out of here with a filter attachment, put a filter on it, and then connect this hose back onto that. That would be step one, would be putting a filter on it. But really, more than a filter, I need the cooler. And the cooler, I guess, would have to go over here. There looks like there could be some room over there, but getting to that over there looks to be a problem. It's bolted down on the inside in here too. It's going to be a project, but I think it's a project I'm going to have to do. It looks to me like the whole cab would have to come off some way before you could get to those bolts, to that panel. Well, I think I figured out the solution to the problem. There's 4 bolts, it looks like, that holds this whole cab on, and I can lift it off with my winch, I'm pretty sure. That looks like that's the only thing. Well, now that I say that, there's got to be wires. So this wire here and this wire here. I'm glad I thought of that, though, because that would have been ugly to lift that up. This one here got a little length to it. This one here goes down in this hole, and it's got a little length to it also. Take the 4 bolts loose. There's a bolt down here in the corner. There's a bolt in each corner like that back here. Just 4 bolts. Well, I'm going to just take those 4 bolts loose, lift very carefully and slowly, and see what happens, and see what what else I have to take loose. Everything's loose. I've got the chain hooked up to the 2 eye bolts. I always wondered what those 2 eye bolts were for on the top. I figured they picked up the whole machine with it and put them on, ships or something, or in crates or something. I had no idea, but now I know those 2 eye bolts are to lift the cab off. So here we go. I'm going to just barely lift this and see what happens. That's unless this thing gets stuck, and it most likely will get stuck. This is the situation where it usually gets stuck when you're trying to do something tedious like this. I probably want to put the chain a little more on that side to balance it. The hook, I mean. Try that now. Okay, it's coming up. Now the trick is what is going to catch and what is going to be held. I don't know yet. So far, nothing, but I don't see how it could not connect to something wire-wise. That is weird. I don't see nothing connected. Let me look down here. Surely there's got to be wires going through somewhere. Uh-oh. Oh no, we've hit the up limit. That's as high as I can lift. It never quits. It never quits. It never quits. That's as high as I can lift because I hit the limit switch on the winch. And it's so close. It's so close to working. Now I can get to these two bolts that were hidden, and I can get, these bolts okay. And so I'll get all these bolts off and see if this swings open. If any two bolts on this thing needed to have been threaded bolts instead of with a nut on them, those are the two, and those have nuts on them. It's the dumbest. It's so stupid. I can't even tell you how stupid that is. Especially since all the rest of them were threaded. Threaded holes. Well, my friends, I shortened the chain up on top as short as I could possibly get it. Had to make modifications even to do that. And I was able to lift it about another 3 inches higher. So I can get my arm in on this top bolt. And wouldn't you know that nut on the inside is a different size than the bolt on the outside. Somebody was in cahoots with the devil when they created something like this. It's just ridiculous to make something this complicated. Oh my gosh. Holy mackerel. Well, that was simple. Wasn't nothing to that at all. I will say that's not just a sheet metal plate, that's a thick steel plate. Maybe there's room to put a cooler here now. That's all I was trying to figure out is there enough room to put a cooler in this thing? In fact, there's holes drilled through this plate. Maybe that's what they're for. There might be room to put a fan up here too. Yeah, I'll probably put a plug on this one wire where I can just take it apart. And that's the only wire that's keeping the cab on there right now. Well, my friends, after a little bit of finagling, I got that around there. Oh, of course, I had to do a little bit of snippy on those two wires that were still connected. Other than that, that's the only two wires that are connected. It's so dumb that there's not a quick disconnect on that. But I couldn't go up any higher. I had it as high as I could go, so I took the seat off, slid the seat down through that hole. Actually, it fell out through the hole. And then I put the boom down all the way and wiggled this cab around. Kind of should have videoed it, but I was aggravated, so I didn't really want to video it. But anyway, I got her off of there just through sheer determination. That's the only way you could have done it. Now, if that would have lifted 6 more inches higher, just 6 inches higher, I'd have been home free. But I got it anyway. Now, when I put it back on, more than likely, I'll just take the Bobcat and grab a hold of that and lift it up higher, and might even have to put my boom on the front of my Bobcat or whatever to lift it up high enough. But I hope it'll go on easier than it came off. At least now I know what I'm dealing with. And I definitely am going to make improvements to this thing while I've got it apart. I'm going to fix everything I can think to fix. And when I say fix, there's nothing really broken. It's just poor design. So I'm just going to redesign and fix everything that I can fix that way. Wish me luck, because I'm going to need it.
Boy, howdy. Yeah, it's so dumb on some things. I mean, like, for instance, all the bolts that were easy to get to went into threaded holes. So, you just unscrew them and they come right off. All the bolts that were really hard to get to had nuts on them. So dumb. So dumb. If you just would reverse that, it would have been a piece of cake to take it apart, I mean, and most of the bolts went into threaded holes, except for the two really hard ones to reach, the ones you couldn't get to, because everything was in your way, and it was a real long reach down in there on top of that. I'm telling you, you got to wonder when they designed stuff like that, what were they thinking? Obviously they weren't. They weren't thinking. That's the whole problem. Well, we will have our play along this evening, and unless the beans have been spilled in the chat, I don't think anybody knows who it is, and it's going to be a surprise guest. And I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. So be there or be square, as they say, 7 o'clock this evening. Let's go through the comments and see what's going on. David Tharp says, howdy, everybody. I'm not old-fashioned. I'm just from a time when everything was a lot better. Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. David Tharp, seriously, Jerry, does Harbor Freight have a spray gun for lacquer that you would recommend? Spray gun isn't on your products I use page. Well, my spray gun that I have is a DeVille Biss. It's a name brand, DeVille Biss it kind of looks like devil, but it's DeVille Biss is the way they generally say it. And anyway, it's a high-end spray gun. It's pretty, those are fairly expensive brands. I think somewhere along the line, we bought a Harbor Freight spray gun when Caleb was here. I may have just let Caleb take it. I don't know, because I haven't seen that. So I don't have a recommendation for Harbor Freight, I don't think, but I'm fairly sure we bought one. So sorry, I can't really say yay or nay on that. Don Nice. Hi, Jerry and friends. It's a hot and humidity day at 87 degrees. Well, I'm sure it's going to be that way out here. Well, the humidity for sure, we have that. We got the ticks and the chiggers. Humidity, and the temperature's not terrible right now because it's overcast again. Sue said it was going to rain for like 7 or 8 days in a row. And it's overcast again, and it's been raining on and off. Hopefully we don't get flooded in, but you never know. Let's see. Rod Wentler says, after yesterday's video, I started wondering if you could rig some outrigger braces that can open up and stabilize the skid steer. I know they use them on the big cranes and excavators. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know if that would work or not, but it would be cool if there was a way to stabilize it. Yeah. It's worth thinking about, but I can't think of any particular way right now that would work and make sense. The thing's only got so much power. For what it's doing, it's got relatively good power, relatively, for what you do with the thing. I'm not sure if what kind, you'd have to have extra controllers and everything to make other hydraulics things come down, So I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to do that, but it's worth thinking about. Don Nice, Jerry, I'm with you. Work in the morning while it's cool. Well, I am definitely a morning person. And especially the older I get. I used to be an all-day person, never slow down. But now mid-afternoon, I'm starting to slow down pretty fast. So, but for sure, I get a lot done in the morning. I would say I get as much done in the mornings as a whole lot of people do all day long, or maybe over 2 days. Let's see. Ronald Hyde, good afternoon, Jerry and everyone from the West Bank of New Jersey. Bill Rhodes, hello, Jerry, and all the Rosa group. Again, I'm looking for the question marks. I don't see any on Mark's comment there. He said he picked up the rifle, and he's pleased with the results. Thanks again. You're welcome, Mark. Hope you like it. While he was here, I showed him my prized possession, my 1970 Marlin, which was the centennial anniversary model, and it has the little emblem in the stock to prove that. And Mark found the JM on there too, which I think his name was John Marlin or something like that. He found the initials on the barrel too while he was here. So yeah, I really like my old Marlin 3030. That gun is just really well made. It's just a great gun. Let's see, moving on down. Yeah, Mark was telling us about his issues with the cancer and the chemo pills and all that stuff. And I'm praying for you, Mark. I hope everything goes well for you, because nobody should have to go through that. Dottie says, Jerry, I watched your video on how to make cedar shingles. That's a whole lot of work for sure. I enjoyed watching the video. Yeah, it's a whole lot of work. It really is. I mean, it's a whole lot of work just to get it up to the point where you can make the shingles. And then making the shingles is not no simple thing. And then you get to put them on the roof. So it's work. It'll work you to death 3 different times for sure. And maybe more than that, really. There's a lot of work involved in that. Let's see here. It scrolled on me and I lost my place. Okay, I found it. Gino says, hi, Jerry and friends. Rainy day in Monroe, Ohio, to buy some new parts for my old KI. Okay. Bill Webb, good afternoon, and good afternoon to you. Kirby vacuum cleaner was the KI. Yeah, I've had vacuum cleaners apart several times in my life, but I don't claim to be any expert on them. I don't think we probably had a Kirby at one time or another. In the UK, they just call them Hoovers, right? Let's see. Well, I had a thought there too about the comments. Somebody, the last several times people said, you're skipping my comments. Well, I just want you guys to know that I don't skip any comments on purpose. I mean, it's always possible I could skip a comment. That's not an issue. But, and you all know I do have a lot of trouble reading. That part's for sure. But I don't have trouble scanning and looking for like somebody's name. Like somebody said, hey, you missed 2 of my comments. So I scan back looking for their name. I'm good at that. I can do that really well. And I don't see their name on there. So I just wanted to be clear that I didn't miss those comments. They're just not there. Now, it could be this dang software that I'm using. It's possible because I'm not using the Chrome browser, or I'm not using a Google browser or anything. I'm using this actual streaming software, which brings the comments in. Now, there could be a problem in that translation where it's missing some comments. I don't know why or how that would happen, but just wanted to let you know that I'm pretty positive. When I say I didn't miss your comment, I didn't miss it. It's just not there. After we went live, David Tharp says, I had a thought and then I had another thought. They bounced off of each other and now I can't find either one. I run into that problem all the time. Yeah, the old go into the room and you forget what you went in there for type kind of problem. I have that a lot. Bill Mumbo, hiya folks. Yum yum fruit pies. Blackberries are sometimes known as brambles in England. My favorite jam, jelly to, yeah. Well, blackberries, they're almost too strong for my taste. I mean, they're okay. I can eat them for sure if they're cooked up and everything. But the raspberries, ooh, wow, those things are awesome. They really are. Let's see. Simon Jardine. Raspberries, brambles. Thanks, Bill. Very common all over the UK. Makes great jam. Yep. Now, another thing, too, for the quote-unquote uneducated that don't get out and do these kinds of things, the blackberries, their stems are, well, I'm colorblind, but, they're darker colored. They're green or brown or something like that. Where these raspberry, the vines, the stalks, if you will, they're a light, like a whiter color. They're much whiter looking. I think you can even rub some of that white off, but it does get a white on the stem type thing. So you can kind of tell them apart pretty easily. Plus their leaves are a little different also. Other than that, they look a whole lot alike on the vine. Now, when you pick blackberry, pretty much the whole berry comes right off. When you pick the raspberry, it's a hollow center. The berry comes off of like a hull or a hub or something. So the raspberries are hollow on the inside, where the blackberries are pretty much solid. That's another way you can tell a difference if you didn't already know. Bill Mumbo, I enjoyed your lumberjacking adventures, Jerry. Nice video, thanks. Yeah, this is a tough time of the year to be doing that, let me tell you. When it's hot and humid, it's just not pleasant. Plus the ticks and chiggers, man, they're just terrible. Russell Allen, hi Jerry from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Our raspberries are not ripe yet. Yeah, well, most of ours aren't either. This is the biggest crop of them I've ever seen. And it wasn't just in that one spot where we were. We passed by, I don't know. I mean, like 50 yards of them, like in different places. I mean, seriously, like there'd be 5 or 10 yards worth of them along the trail. And then you go a little further and there'd be another 5 or 10 yards of, like 30 feet in a row. You see these raspberries. I've never seen them like this before. They're thick as they can be. I guess it's all the rain, I guess. Well, it's also in the areas where they did all the logging. So it's just yet another reason to have trees harvested off of a farm. See, our farm was selectively harvested about 5 or 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I guess now. And the selective harvest, you really couldn't tell that they were here, other than when you get up in the woods, you find treetops and trees down and stuff like that. But just looking down the valley, you couldn't tell that they were in there, even though they hauled out, I don't know, at least 50 truckloads of logs, and probably quite a bit more than that, actually. But anyway, the point is, where they cut those trees along the trails, where the trails are already a little more open, and then they open it up even more. So you got little pockets of openness. That's where all the berries are coming up, which benefits all of the wildlife. I mean, deer, squirrels, everything's going to eat those stuff. Birds of every kind are going to be eating it. So it's really a beneficial thing. People think all the time of all the negatives when you cut a tree down. But here, when you cut a tree down in the woods, first of all, there'll be seriously 25 to 50 more trees grow up in that space. Now, they'll all be fighting to be the tallest tree, and they'll shade out the other ones. They're all fighting for that, but there'll be that many trees pop up. And you also get the side benefit of all these other shrubs and brush and berries and things that pop up too. So, and that's the other reason why you don't really need to plant another tree, because they just grow up naturally. In fact, they grow up so many that you really need to thin them instead of plant them. Ronald Todd, Jerry, it looks like there are fan cutouts already in the sheet metal. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is there a possibility an add-on kit cooling fans? Yeah, well, I've already ordered a fan, just a separate cooling fan in 10-inch size, and I've also ordered a hydraulic oil cooler, which also has a fan built into it. So I've ordered both of those things. Bill Mumbo. Oh, let's see, there's no question marks. I'm just trying to read the ones with question marks. Lindenbaum, a one-armed man was fishing down by the river. He caught a fish this big. It was this big. Well, that's me. You know, I went down to the river when the boys were here, and I caught several smallmouth. They were this big, you know, that big right there. No, actually, I schooled Trini, and he's the fisherman. He loves to fish, you know. He didn't catch a single fish down the river, and I caught 4. And it was really weird because you couldn't have planned it. The first one was just a little bass about 6 inches long, and it was a largemouth, which is unusual to catch them in the river. You usually don't catch largemouth bass at least in this little piney river. They usually catch smallmouth. So it was about 6 inches long. Well, then I caught about an 8-inch long smallmouth right after that. Then I caught about a 10-inch long smallmouth right after that. Then I caught about a 12-inch long smallmouth. So I ended up catching 4 of them, and each one got bigger. So I should have stayed. Let's see. Ronald Todd, I have a hobo freight spray gun I got for $10 a while back and worked great for small jobs, but wouldn't recommend for commercial use. Well, back to that spray gun issue from Harbor Freight. I'm pretty sure that's where we bought it, and I'm pretty sure it worked fine. So, I mean, at least I can say that. I'm not 100% sure that's where we bought it, but I know we had one, and it really is curious now where it is, because I didn't think that Caleb took that, but he might have. I gave him a lot of stuff, so I could have easily given it to him, but I just don't remember. I know he wouldn't have taken it without me giving it to him. That's not the issue at all. So it's just that I can't remember what I did with it, whether I gave it to him or whether I set it down there in a cabinet someplace that I forgot about. Don Nice, Jerry, I didn't see that green shirt for a while. Yeah, well, now you do. I was better, but I'm getting over it. That's pretty much the thing I say almost every day. Because somebody's always saying, how are you? And I say, well, I was better, but I'm getting over it. And that's really very true at my age at this point. It's very true. It's 100% true, in fact. Ronald Todd, Jerry, after all work and aggravation of making those shingles, do you still think that you made the right choice by making them yourself? Yes, I do. For several reasons. Number one, I just wanted to be able to say I made every part of that sucker. But also because they are way cheaper. A lot of work. You pay for it either way. I'd just soon pay for it in the work, I guess. Because it would have been a couple $1,000 for sure just to buy the shingles. How much weight have you lost? You look like you've lost weight. Well, I definitely have. I'm still hanging right around 198. It just takes forever. I lose the 2 pounds, and then it just kind of sits there. And it sits there seems like for a week to 10 days. Well, longer than that. About 2 weeks, it seems like, before I lose the next 2 pounds. And that's the way it's been going, really, for the last, I don't know, since I was around 208 or somewhere in there. It seemed like it was a couple of weeks before I'd lose the next 2 pounds. And it always seems to be in the 2 pound increment. Theron Corbett, you need to be mindful of Yogi Bear while you're focused on picking those berries. Yeah, and there's supposed to be bears around here now, which I have never seen one yet. But I'm just going by the guy, which I don't have an idea what his name is because I only met him one time. But he's just basically over the hill behind us about, I would say, from right here, less than a mile away, probably close to a mile. And anyway, he showed me, this was several years ago now, probably about 3 years ago, he showed me pictures from a wildlife camera of bear, that he had on his camera. And he's, only a mile away. And I have yet to see any bear or bear sign of any kind here. But surely they got to be here if he's got them that close. He had 3 different bear. He had a cinnamon-colored one, had a mama bear, and a baby bear. And the mama bear and the baby bear were black, but the other one was a cinnamon-colored bear. Let's see here. Tom Armstrong, do you eat any fish from your pond? No, we definitely have. Trinian will sometimes keep a few that he catches, and when he's here, and we'll eat them at that point. But I don't go down there and fish enough to worry about it anyway. So, but pretty much if he's here and he catches them and we want to eat them, then yeah, we do. Don Nice, Jerry, are you looking for the weight you lost? Are you looking for the weight you lost? Well, not really looking for it. Newton Bowhorn, I saw a man throwing back some monster catfish. I asked him why. He said they were too big for his 10-inch skillet. I've seen, I'm sure it was illegal the way these guys were doing it, but we were at, I forget the name, Suisun Park was the name of the park. I forgot about this until just this second when you said about throwing these big catfish back. There was a park in St. Louis County called Suisun Park, and you could buy a permit to fish for catfish there, and they were good-sized catfish, a lot of them. I'm a couple of pounds, that kind of thing. A pound to 2 pounds was your average. But there was always these guys that would, have on their stringer like these 18 to 20-pound catfish. These things were enormous. They were really huge. They looked bigger than that, even that. And I'm sure they were catching them illegal. Everybody pretty much knew that's how they were catching them. You weren't allowed to do it, but they were, they'd put a treble hook on and a weight about this far from their treble hook. And they'd cast out there, and every so often they just raise the end of their pole up like this, just real slow. And what would happen is that weight would go over the back of a big catfish like that and drop, and then that treble hook would snag that catfish, in the tail or the back or whatever, And whenever they caught those big fish, they were always snag type catches, But they always claimed that's not what they were doing. They were catching them, on bait, that type thing. But they were always a snag catch whenever you'd see them catch them. I'll tell you what, if you've never fished, or if you have and you've never fished for catfish, if you want to feel a fish that pulls hard, catch a catfish. Oh my gosh. Like a 3-pound bass, it'll put up a good fight. You catch a 3-pound catfish, and you're going to know you've got a hold of something. It's way more powerful than a 3-pound bass. It seriously is more powerful. It's really hard to compare them even. It's that different. Simon Jardine, are the bears protected, Jerry? I hope they are. I know they are for sure. All wildlife in Missouri is protected. There's seasons. That doesn't mean you can't hunt them. They have seasons where you can legally hunt them. And I think the bear have now gotten to the population where they did finally have a bear season this last year, I think. I wasn't interested in it, but I think they had one. But anyway, let's see. Zappa. Jerry, are you sure your weight loss is not just your scale batteries dying? Yeah, it's very likely that could be the cause. It's possible. Sidecar Bob, Simon, why would bears be protected? They are basically huge rats that do a lot of damage. Well, all wildlife in Missouri is pretty much protected. There are certain exceptions, like the feral hogs. Those are not protected at all. You can shoot them on site anytime, anywhere, any place. Birds for the most part are protected. Pretty much everything is in Missouri. Very few things are not protected. Now, having said that, you can also protect your own property. So like, say, a deer, I don't know, it's a little iffy on certain animals. Like a deer, if it was somehow destroying something like your garden or something, that one's on the edge of whether you could shoot that or not. I'm not going to say on that one. But like, say, a coyote had your lamb down, you could definitely shoot the coyote no matter what time of year it was, to protect your animal, that kind of thing. So but pretty much all the wildlife in Missouri is protected. Missouri's conservation is really one of the best conservations there is. In fact, lots of states model their programs after Missouri's program. It's been around for a very long time, and I think one of the places where Missouri stood out was deer were nearly extinct in Missouri at about 1950-ish, early 60s, right in that time frame. And Missouri Conservation, took over and somewhere in that time frame, and really did do a good job of bringing the deer population back, which now you could argue that they've done too good a job because there's so many of them. Ron Todd says, you're absolutely right about the fish fighting. Boy, I know for sure on the catfish, man. Those suckers, they just feel like they're going to break your pole off. It's totally a different feel. It's almost like you're snagged. Well, in fact, I'll tell you another side story. We used to live on the Big River when Sue and I first got married. For the first, 5 or 6 years, I guess. We lived in a little community in High Ridge, Missouri, and the end of the road, it was kind of like a little private drive, not too different than the 3-mile road we're on now, similar to that. But anyway, we lived off of that private drive, and then if you went on down the road, it went all the way to the Big River. Well, one day we went down there fishing with Sue. There's been a number of days, in fact, and a number of times we did that, but this particular time, I think it was raining lightly, and I always say that's a really good time to fish the river. If it's just barely sprinkling rain, it just seems like a good time. While we were down there, we were just catching fish left and right, and in fact, she was doing all the catching. I was just unhooking them and, taking care of that type of business. I couldn't hardly get my line in the water. And then all of a sudden she goes, "Oh, man, I'm snagged." I thought, oh, no, because there's a lot of snags in the Big River. So I grab a hold of her pole. She wasn't snagged. She had about an 8 or 10 pound catfish on that sucker. And she fought it, and she got it, and the banks are pretty steep off, and she got it where half of the body was out of the water. And I tried to get down the bank to get to it, and just about the moment I got there, it came off the hook and got away. But it was a big sucker, man, and they do feel like you're snagged. I mean, and when they decide they're going to go the other way, your pole will almost break in two. I mean, it feels like it's going to break. I'm talking a catfish that big or bigger, and especially bigger. You really don't even want to get a hold of one any bigger than about 8 pounds, because unless you got a good stout rod, it's going to bust your rod. Let's see. Let's see. It's several scrolled up here, so I'm trying to figure out where Zappa says, if a bear, no, that's no question mark. Sidecar Bob says they stopped letting farmers kill bears here, and we were overrun about a decade. Well, here, I know I can shoot a bear if it's doing something for sure. Like, if it's in my chicken house, if it's killing my dog or something like that, I can shoot the bear. And I know that's legal here to do that, but only under certain conditions. I mean, you got to be able to kind of prove what happened, Simon Jardine, that type of treble hook snagging is called jigging in Scotland and is definitely illegal. It can scar the fish terribly and might still get away. Yeah, it is definitely illegal in the park for sure. And that park was run by the Missouri Conservation also, by the way. Bill Momo says, in fact, they're introducing beavers. Well, okay. Let's see. So that was a side conversation, I guess. Wavy Gravy, I once caught a catfish that took all the line off my reel and had me wading out into waist deep water before I could ever get the line back. He was a whopper. The catfish are stout, man. I mean, they are super, super stout fish. Missouri fox are about gone. Yeah, I what's weird, when I used to bow hunt all the time, I saw fox all the time. In all the other places I've hunted. I hunted here for a lot when I first moved here. And, as I've gotten older, I've slowed that way down. But never once did I see a fox here. Not one single time. And as much as I was out in the woods, which was a lot, I never saw a fox here. Well, one day I was out here in the back. We have that carriage house back there in the back, that little log cabin where that's what we call it, a carriage house, because can't think of a better name for it. And anyway, there was a dead fox laying in the floor of that carriage house. Now, I assume one of the dogs caught it or something. But that's the only fox I've ever seen here, and it was dead, which I thought was pretty weird. David Thorpe says, all the fish I catch are whoppers. Yep. Sidecar Bob, I know one farmer who had a war with beavers. They were introduced by someone who thought they weren't enough native ones, and they dams destroyed a lot of forest. Well, for one, I don't know. I'm on the fence about beavers. I mean, it depends on what's going on. I could hate them. I could definitely hate them, but I really do overall really like beavers. I think they're really cool animals. But I could see how you could really want to hate one if it was clogging up like your stream or something. Well, I'm talking about your overflow type situation. Like if it was clogging up something that made everything flood and cause problems for you, I could see how you could hate them. But overall, we had some that were trying to build back there in the back of our property, and I just thought that was the most awesome thing ever. And I couldn't stay away from back there, going back to see what else they had done, and I guess I scared them off because they had just got started, and I guess I went back there so much it scared them too much, and they didn't continue. So some would say that was a good thing because they never came back, David Tharp says, don't forget the thumbs up. Yeah, if you would, please. Mark Nasm says, Jerry, any fish in that lake near the bridge? Any fish in that lake near the bridge? If you're talking about our pond here in the front with the water wheel, for sure. Near the bridge. Oh, are you about on Highway 44, that bridge? I don't know what you're talking about for sure, Mark. Is that your lake? I don't know what you're talking about for sure, I don't guess. I can't think of any bridge where there's a lake or anything other than right here on our farm. And, of course, that's our pond, but I don't know what you're talking about. Frank Highland, bear good to eat. Well, some people say it is. I've never eaten any bear. David Tharp, I was going to try the all almond diet, but that's just nuts. Well, I've been kind of on that. I eat 2 scrambled eggs and either 2 pieces of bacon or 2 pieces of sausage every morning, and then a little bitty, a cup that size right there with nuts in it for lunch and for supper. That's all I've eaten for the last probably 3 months, I guess. I don't know why I'm just not skinny. Ronald Todd, yes, bear is delicious. Simon Jardine, Jerry, we're reintroducing beaver here in Scotland. Cue the usual debate from those who make profit from them not being here and us who wish Scotland wasn't just a playground for foreign hunters. Well, I think if under the right circumstances, right conditions, for sure, I think beaver lakes and beaver ponds are the most beautiful thing you'll ever see out in nature. They're just gorgeous, usually. Now, when they, like I said, if they're clogging up concrete culverts and things like that, that's a different problem. But out in the wild, where they ought to be, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Because the water's always crystal clear, and the water's just perfectly flowing across their dam because they just are so good at keeping it like that. Mark Nasm says, I'm from a place outside of Pittsburgh named Beaver County. Tom Armstrong says, bear, Bigfoot. No, the railroad bridge. Okay, well, there's a lake. Yeah, that's all on the other side of the railroad tracks down there. That's gravel quarry ground down there. So that would all be, they do have some lakes in there, and they do have fish in them. In fact, I've fished over there a time or 2 years ago and caught some pretty good fish. When the river gets up, it floods those things, and so fish are left in those quite often from that. But the back then, the gravel quarry was open and everything, and nowadays everything's posted. They don't want you on the ground, so I don't go over there anymore. Scott Roberts, best roast I've ever had was black bear, and my son just got another one in Oregon last week. He was, and it's scrolled on me, he was up from the Grand Canyon for a bear hunt with his uncle. Well, I've never been on a bear hunt either. Sidecar Bob, some beavers are good to have, but these people were trying to turn a farm into a nature reserve and imported the beavers instead of just letting the ones that were already there take over. Yeah, well, I think whenever humans get involved, that's usually where the problem starts. I think I've told the story, too, that the Little Piney down here, when we first moved down here, I am not exaggerating when I tell you it was probably the best fishing maybe on the whole planet. I mean, you could go down there and catch 2-pound smallmouth left and right, just left and right. I mean, like with a fly rod. You could be down on a fly rod and just catching them like crazy. Then they claim, I don't know that it's true, but they claim that the conservation turned loose otters. I've heard lots of people say that that's true. I still don't know if it's true or not, but they said it is. So anyway, the otters came in down there, and I swear to you, you couldn't find a fish down there for the longest time. So I just quit fishing for years and years, and just recently when the boys are here is the only time I go down there. But they seem to be coming back, but they're not as big as they used to be. At least none of the fish that I caught were as big as they used to be. I caught 24-inch smallmouth. That's a big smallmouth if you know anything about bass and smallmouth. Scott Roberts, bobcats are pretty good eating too. David Tharp, would you recommend a gravity feed or siphon spray gun? HVLP, isn't that what they call them? High volume, low pressure? I think HVLP is what I recommend. So whatever that works out to. But it is kind of a gravity feed, yeah. But not the pressure feed, no. Or a siphon. Yeah. Mine has the cup above. And the second one that we had from Harbor Freight, the cup was above also. I would recommend that. Let's see. Sidecar Bob, our town has been overrun with rabbits the last couple of years. There have been a lot of bobcat sightings. One in our neighbor's yard. Nature's way of controlling the bunnies. Yeah. If you get plenty of bunnies, everything eats rabbit. I mean, like, it's just like chicken. Everything eats chicken. Everything eats rabbits. So, yeah, you're going to have predators if you have things like that. I'm going to let that be it, guys. Thanks for being here. Come back this evening about 7 o'clock. We should have a good program for you. I think you'll enjoy it.